Beginning Crochet Lesson 1.2, starting with a slip knot and a chain. Here I have a ball of yarn. This is a size 4 medium weight acrylic yarn, and if we look at the label, it gives us a lot of information about this yarn and how to use it. The first thing that we're going to notice is that this ball of yarn recommends that we use a size 5 millimeter hook. Now, this does not mean that you have to, it's just recommended. And oftentimes, these skeins of yarn will come with a pattern on the inside of the label, like this one here. And the recommendation will fit the instructions of the pattern. Now, if we look very closely, we have a lot of good guidance on this label. Here, there's a little square. On the inside of the square, it says 5 millimeter US 8, and it shows a pair of knitting needles. Now, we aren't knitting in this project, so be sure to look to the right where we clearly see the crochet hook, and we're still using a 5 millimeter hook. On that hook, it also may be labeled under 8 or the letter H. The square also tells us that we can expect to get a 4-inch or 10 centimeter side of a square if we make 18 stitches across. So let's do that and see if following the guide will give us the result that it says. Creating the slip knot. First, we'll make our slip knot. I'll show you with both hands how to create the slip knot. Now, as I told you before, I'm left-handed, and depending on how you do this will give you a little bit of a variation in your knot that you might not notice at first. So naturally, I'm going to hold the yarn in my right hand because I'd be holding the hook in my left hand. Drape about 8 inches of yarn over your index finger and pinch the tail between your thumb and your middle finger. Bring the back piece of yarn forward and cross it over the tail. Drop the tail behind and pinch the piece that you just dropped forward. Now wrap the tail behind your index finger over the top and lie it in front of the first loop that is already wrapped around your finger. Pinch both pieces of string between your thumb and your index finger. Pull the loop in the back over the loop in the front and around your entire index finger. Slip the head of your hook into the knot, replacing your index finger. Then pull the string to slip the knot around your hook tightly, and you have your first slip knot. Now, I'm going to repeat this with my left hand so you can see it again. When I get to the end, you can see that I can pull this tail and it will tighten the slip knot. Now, you may have followed my instructions and you may have gotten to this part, and when you pulled the string, the knot just tightened on itself. It didn't move. So what happened? Well, you didn't do anything wrong. Just take a close look at this slip knot. One side of the string has a knot, and one side of the string is a straight line. You want to make sure that the string that you pull is the straight line. If you pull the straight line, you will get the slip knot, and if you pull the end with the knot on it, you'll just tighten the knot and it does not work. Now, if you weren't paying attention, the straight line, the string that you pull, it might be this tail, or it might end up being this ball end. They may not be the same every time you make the slip knot. So is this because you're right-handed or left-handed? It is not. This depends on how you started the slip knot. When I showed you the first time, I told you to drape the tail end over your index finger. Now, if you try this on your own and you drape the tail end behind your index finger and you drape it backwards, you can still make the exact same slip knot and it looks very similar, only the knot on the side of the string is going to be reversed. Now, it does not matter if you do this right-handed or left-handed, and it does not matter if you drape this tail to the front of your hand or toward the back of your hand. You could do it easily either way without thinking about it, and you'll end up getting the same slip knot. No matter how you make your slip knot, you pull the piece of the string that is the straight line to draw your knot to your hook. Making the chain. Now that we have the knot on the hook, we want to make our first chain. The first thing we're going to do is get good control of the yarn in the opposite hand from the hook. Now I'm primarily holding the yarn in my back fingers, and I'm wrapping the yarn until it comes over my index finger. And your index finger is going to gauge the tension between the yarn and the hook. So you're not holding the yarn with your index finger. You're doing the holding part with your back fingers. If this feels awkward, just do your best until you practice a few hundred stitches, and eventually you'll get a grip that feels comfortable for you. Now I'm going to get a firm grip with my thumb and my middle finger just below the knot. And the knot is a few inches below the hook on the widest part of the shaft. We then wrap the yarn over the hook and grab the yarn with the hook and pull it through the knot. This is our first stitch. To make the second stitch, we're going to repeat what we just did and wrap the yarn over the hook, grab the yarn under the hook and pull through. Now we have our second stitch. It's important that after you pull the loop through, you slide the loop back onto the shaft of the crochet hook, because this will help keep your stitches from getting too tight. If you don't push the loop far enough, the shaft might not be a full 5 millimeters, and you'll start to notice that your stitches might start to get a little bit tight. Likewise, if you don't have good grip on your thread and there is not enough tension, you might start getting stitches that are too large. So we'll follow this pattern through for 18 stitches. Now also notice that my hook is doing the work. I told you that we're wrapping the yarn over the hook. The term yarn over is a technical term used to describe the direction of your yarn. We yarn over by placing the yarn over the hook as opposed to yarn under, which would wrap the yarn underneath the hook. And you'll see these two terms written into pattern directions. However, the yarn is not doing the action. Make sure that you're not using the yarn as a lasso, trying to catch the hook in post. Make sure that you're controlling the hook in your hand and that your hook is the piece that is doing the action. Let's take a look at our chain. Your stitches should look even, and if this doesn't happen magically for you, it's just about practice. So if they're bobbly or if they're all different sizes, you just pull it out and do it again. The front, which is referred to as the right side, looks like a series of V's nested into each other. The back has a different pattern that kind of looks like a spine, or it has these little bumps in the chain, and this is called the wrong side. Now at the beginning of this guide, our yarn label told us that this yarn will make a 4-inch chain with 18 stitches and a 5 millimeter hook, so let's take a look. Placing the chain next to a ruler, 18 stitches is almost exactly 4 inches. Now I'm going to build this out a little bit further, and then we can move on to our foundation chain.